celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Rick Russo, and I believe anything is possible.
This is Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. Today my guest is Rick Russo.
Yeah.
Rick, thanks for being here today.
Oh, it is so wonderful to be here. It's my pleasure. It's my honor to be across the table from you, the quintessential interview. I've admired your work, both, Hal, not just doing this, but on the radio over the years. It's a joy to be here.
It goes two ways. It goes two ways. I'm going to start at an odd point in your story. And you'll have to just bear with me for just a second. From the first time I saw you on television, the first thing I loved was your passion and energy and enthusiasm. Like, when I watch you cover something, you seem every bit as excited about what you're covering as what you're covering, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
I'm in the business. To be excited occasionally takes energy. But when you see somebody that's long in the game like we are, bro, I know what this takes, right? I know what this takes. It takes energy.
Yeah, it does.
First of all, you have to have a love for it. But then on top of that, you have to project it. You have to, it's intentional. When you see somebody that's good at their craft and they can replicate that excellence, they're putting something into it. So I always admired your professionalism in terms of how you structure and how you tell stories, but the consistency of the energy, the passion.
Yeah.
So I'm watching you all these years, loving your work. You guys are the station for the Vols, so you're right smack dab in the middle of all of the highs, the lows, the good, the bad. And I was watching you, and then I hear off to the side, you know Rick has cancer. And that's when I took a step back and I was like, I'd always been amazed, but the world didn't know you had cancer, and it was the same energy.
Yeah.
How in the world was that possible? Would you please tell me that story?
Oh, yeah. I've actually, believe it or not, I've had about a dozen surgeries since 2009.
Really?
A dozen. I tore my patella tendon playing in a charity softball game. What a story that was. Everybody knows I'm a goofball. I'm rounding first. Boom. You hear it pop. You know, I heard it, and I'm writhing in pain. Knee is like this, like Joe Theismann. And everybody's like, you know, he's messing around. We were killing the other team. And come to find out, I tore my patella tendon, and the rest is history. You can imagine where the kneecap was. I tore a tendon in my hand. I had back surgery. I was changing a tire, Halloran, and it sounded like Rice Krispie cereal. And the first surgery didn't take. I couldn't walk. I was crawling at the house. 11 days later, I'm back on the operating table. Then the cancer. Then I was on the sideline at a UT football game. We got run over by Nigel Warrior, one of our safeties. And you always look for the positive in things. I didn't break my neck. I didn't break my back again, but I broke my ankle. I have a plate and 7 screws in my right ankle, and I have diminished feeling still in my right foot right now. And then I had eye problems, and I've had a few surgeries in my eye. It's better now, but I almost had a detached retina. And
Dang.
But I'm still going, man. I'm still going.
Man, that's grace on top of grace on top of grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Miami, Florida, from South Florida. So a young Miami boy grows up. I ended up finishing school in Gainesville, Florida, but then I got a job immediately out of school in Savannah, Georgia, worked there for a few years before I came here in August of 1987, and I've been here since, and it's been quite a run. But the cancer thing did send me for a loop, internally. There's no question, and it would for anybody.
What happened?
Well, and there's a story behind the story here. I had lower abdominal pain for about a week. And I had just had Halloran a physical maybe a month before. But I'm being like any macho man, you know, I'm like any guy, I'm being stubborn. I'm not going to the doctor. And then the rock that's always been in my corner, my wife, she and I are celebrating, by the way, our 35th wedding anniversary. She said, Rick, you big dummy, just like Fred Sanford back in the day. You need to get to the doctor, you know. So I did. The doc said, Rick, it's either diverticulitis or appendicitis, but we're going to take you downstairs for a CT scan and we'll see what's going on. Come to find out, it was diverticulitis. And they gave me an antibiotic for that and everything worked out. But while they were in there, they found the cancer in my kidney. And thank God for the x-ray technician. The red flag came up, boom. So, all right, then you've got to figure out, okay, how do I approach this? How do I attack this? And you figure out what you're going to do, which course of action you want to take. And I ended up going Dr. Duke Harrell at Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville. So we went to see him because you get different opinions. And one doctor here wanted to maybe freeze it, you know, they do cryoablation, you know, and so come to find out where the tumor was in the kidney, it was too close to some of the warm blood vessels. And if you tried to freeze it, it might turn, you know, the cancer could come back. So we ended up having surgery. And they thought they would maybe try to save part of the kidney, but they couldn't. And so I had my entire right kidney removed, which, thank God, you can live with one kidney. And in a minute, I'll tell you more about, you know, what doors that opened, you know, with the whole kidney situation. But to get down to what you're talking about, that really showed me, because when you do what we do, sometimes you're in your world. You know, you're focused in on what you're doing, and you know people are out there. You know the communities out there. You see them all the time, but you're focused on what you're doing. When this happened, it really opened my eyes to what they thought about me and how they started lifting me up. I got letters, I got emails, I got calls, people saying, we're with you, we're behind you, you're gonna be all right, you're gonna be fine. God working through these people to help lift me up, and in turn, that enabled me to continue bringing that energy that you were talking about on the air.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Isn't it interesting? I don't like fame, right?
No.
And it's
I'm with
odd
you.
when I tell people this, I've never wanted to be famous.
Right.
I think I have wanted to be significant in this regard, that I made some type of contribution. Mm-hmm. But fame in and of itself is toxic, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Shep Gordon, he's a big time Hollywood agent, and he created the whole celebrity chef category. Mm-hmm. And he also had Jimi Hendrix, and a bunch of these other artists. And he said he never met a person that fame hadn't damaged, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not a fan of fame, but there's something that happens, and you were just talking about this, when love is better than fame. And when you realize that people love you, that right there is something else. And I think that's what you got a window into. Yeah. So do you believe that the outpouring of love that came toward you was part of the healing?
Without a doubt, no question. And then the doors that it opened up, because of what happened to me, I'm all of a sudden hearing from the Kidney Foundation. And they want me to be the face, or be a face, to help them in their cause and the way they help others. And I jumped on it. You know, every year I go out and I'll MC, you know, the kidney walk, and I'll get up and I'll tell my story. And I'll tell people there are others that are there with you, you know, on your journey and in your fight, you know, to hang in there and to be tough. You know, Halloran, over the years I have found, you talked about love and fame, I have found that it is amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit.
True. It's really amazing.
It's amazing. And that's how I've lived my life, how I've managed and worked with others. And I talk about, being in the sports business and being a sports director and all that. I'm part of a team. I've always been part of a team, and everybody that works with me and around me works with me and around me and not for me. Love input, love talking to people, love getting feedback from people. And that's how you continue to move forward and be successful.
The crew that's actually doing this show, there's a guy on this crew, and when we were pre-gaming today's production, we were going around the circle talking about what we were thankful for. And he said he was thankful for you.
No kidding.
And he talked about the years working with you. Right? That's the validation of what you just said.
It reaffirms everything I've been doing over the years. Yeah.
So let's talk about your career. You're about to get a major honor this year. You've been in the game a long time.
I have.
How many years?
107. I graduated from college in April of '84. Within a month, by June of '84, I was working in Savannah, Georgia. Funny story. So I get to Savannah, Halloran, and the sports director's there. His name is Rick. They wanted me to change my name. And I said to them, you can't make up Rick Russo. Man, that's a sports name.
That's a sports name.
And then my wheels are turning, and I'm thinking about ways to promote the department, team. I'm thinking Rick Squared, or when it comes to sports, there's only one name to think about, Rick.
Right.
So, but that was a neat experience, and you hit the ground running, and you make your mistakes, and you speaking of mistakes.
Why sports? Why did you?
Yeah, because news is depressing. No. Well, this goes back to when I was a kid, and you talk about anything as possible. When I was young, I was a huge fan. Back in Miami, we only had one professional team at the time, the Miami Dolphins. And in 1972, Halloran, they went undefeated. Only undefeated team in the history of the National Football League. And I was in the Orange Bowl, the old Orange Bowl back in the day, watching those games. And I watched the way they played. And people think that you're undefeated, you're killing everybody. It's 45-0 every game. That's not the case. There were some games they had to come from behind to win. They were struggling. But I learned right there that that's the true sign of a champion. Somebody who can fight through adversity. And when you're not having your best, you're not doing your best, you don't have your best stuff, yet you still come out on top. And you talk about something that stayed with a kid that was 10 years old at the time, that was ingrained in me. So I love that. And I loved sports, loved to play sports. But when I first started, I wanted to be the guy behind the camera. I loved old NFL films, highlights, and watching that football. The frozen tundra, John Facenda, and watching that football fly through the air. I wanted to be the guy that filmed, that football. And I got interested in it. And then as I got into college, I found that the stuff on this side of the camera is pretty cool too. It's pretty fun. I can reach a lot of people. I can do a lot of different things. And one thing led to another, and that's what I pursued, and it eventually led me here to East Tennessee.
So why did you stay here? I know why I stayed, but why did you stay here?
Because
you've got the talent to be on an ESPN or to be in a New York and LA.
Growing up in South Florida and being able to travel, one of the beautiful things about what I do is it affords me the opportunity to travel, all around the country. I even went to Cuba with the Tennessee baseball team back in the mid-2000s. But I can think of a lot worse places to raise a family and to live your life. It's just been a great experience for us and for our family. And Halloran, you know how life happens. You rent a house, you buy a house, you have a kid, you get another house, you have another kid. Next thing you know, it's 20 years. But you're right. People have asked me, how have you dinosaur? How have you been here this long? It has felt like I've worked for a few different stations. And obviously different ownership groups and different managers. But when I got here in 1987, we were a UHF station up on Sharps Ridge, which now is a radio station up there. But we were WTVK. And then eventually they sold to a limited partnership One of those partners became a good friend of mine, Ralph Boston. Yeah, the great Olympian.
The amazing Ralph Boston.
And we had a great, I can tell you this story too, but Ralph and I took a trip together to experience one of the greatest games I have ever seen in my life in person. But the limited partnership came in, took over, became WKXT. Then adversity hit, and that was a really tough time in my life. They realized that things were moving too fast for them and got behind the 8 ball, if you will. And they called us all in the studio one day and said, look, because of this, this, and this, we're going to eliminate the 11 o'clock news and the weekend news. And all we're going to do is a noon and a 6, how they fired 40% of the staff that day. And I don't know, I look back, was I fortunate to be kept, stay, whatever? In the long run, it's been a blessing for me. But I was the only person left in sports. And you're working, all of a sudden now, you've really got to be creative.
You're doing it all.
You're doing it all. And things happen at night, things happen at morning you have to cover. And then on UT football game, you can't cover it like a regular game because by Monday it's old. So you're turning stories and turning angles, turning different ways to cover football. It didn't bother me from a physical standpoint. I was a young man. I was a horse, man. I could go forever. It was up here because, like I told you earlier, I love to bounce stuff off people. I love to get input. And there were times where I'm like, Rick, what do you think? I don't know, Rick, what do you think? So so that got tough, and that was like that for a couple of years. And then the company that owns us now, great television, great company. I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here and it's on our air, but they really, as opposed to the other people that I've worked for in the past, really value their employees and put back it into the system. Well, they came in and we changed the call letters again to WVLT. And when people come in, Hal, sometimes they like to bring their own people in and do things their own way.
Right.
So they decided they were going to bump me down, and they're bringing their own sports director. They did, and I did what I always do, is keep the blinders on, stay focused, and don't let that outside noise get to you. It's something that I still adhere to this day. But everybody's got an ego, and it hit mine a little bit. I'm like, God, I think I'm better than that guy. What are they doing? And I got an agent, and we were working on something with ESPN. And but you look at big picture, cost of living. They wanted my firstborn, and all that. And my wife again.
What's your wife's name?
Pam. Pamela. And my rock. She said to me, Rick, I'm watching this other guy, and I don't know. Maybe you ride this out. Maybe you just see what's going to happen here. And sure enough, the management at the time realized that on their own. I didn't go to them, Halloran. I didn't knock on the door and say, I want this or that's that. It's Rick or the highway. They realized that on their own, put me back in, and the rest is history. And I'm here.
I think one of the most, like I said, when we started our conversation, I had heard that you had cancer, and I'm watching you on the air, and I'm watching you do the very thing you said you saw in those Dolphins. You give it everything you got. You got to come from behind sometime. Yeah. Watching you maintain your enthusiasm and passion for life, for your work, knowing that you were battling cancer, was one of the most inspiring things to me through a tough time in my life. You have no idea about this.
No,
like
sir.
we never know how we're impacting people,
right.
And we never know how we're fueling another person's sense of possibility.
You never know what someone else is going through.
Like you wouldn't know this. We haven't had these conversations.
No.
Thank you for being that kind of person.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that kind of possibility on display.
Yeah.
Before we get away, tell me about your family.
Well, a lovely wife, Pam, who we've been married now for 35 years, and 2 daughters, grown. One is 31, one is 24, about to graduate from Tennessee in a master's program of accounting, which means, Halloran, She's much smarter than Dad. If anybody in my business tells you they're good at math and science, they're fibbing. They're telling a story. But no, so proud of them, and they have been the light of my life. The people that have always been in my corner. When things are wrong and not going well, or when you're fighting cancer. One of the things that I have that's been important to me when it comes to family and raising children. I haven't always had the money to do the things you want to do and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I knew, which is hard, doing what I do for a living, you know how much the time consumption.
I do.
But the most important thing to me throughout their lives and in them growing up is to be there for them. Even though I worked till midnight, I'd get up in the morning and drive them to school because I thought to myself, hey, this may be the only time today I get to see them because I'm going to be working till midnight, I'm going to take them to school. We're going to talk. We're going to listen to 70s music on the way there. And by the way, they love 70s music. I just put it in there. But, that was important to me. If my older daughter was cheering, I was there. My youngest daughter played some softball or was whatever they were doing, I would run out from the station, go see them, come back. Whatever it took, I made it a point to be there. And I think over the years they've come to appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you for what you bring, what you've brought, and what you will bring to our community. Rick Russo, what an honor.
Thank you, Halloran.